Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for the opposite video to the one I put out a couple of weeks ago, which was the unluckiest team in each of Europe's top 15 leagues. Again, I had no idea what to title this particular video, so you're gonna have to hear me out on it, but basically it's the most efficient team in Europe's top 15 leagues in terms of which team has won the league at least once but spent the fewest seasons out of all of those league champions in their respective country's top flight. I don't think much more needs to be said, but just to note obviously that the team doesn't need to have just won it once, they can have won it multiple times, but it's just a case of which out of each of Europe's top 15 leagues as champions have spent the fewest seasons in their respective top flights. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Cyprus, Enosis Neon Trust. Like we did last time, we start off in the Cypriot First Division, and in this case with Enosis Neon Trust, which, when translated into English, literally means Youth Union Trust. They were the first ever Cypriot League champions all the way back in 1935, losing once in 14 games and scoring 45 goals in the process, and they would also pick up the Cypriot Cup, thus becoming the first team to do the double. However, despite finishing as runners-up in each of the next 3 seasons, the club would find themselves in financial turmoil and they ceased to exist in 1938, meaning that their 4-season stint in the Cypriot top flight is by far and away the shortest by a team who have ever been champions at some stage. Denmark, Helfolge Boldklub. Despite recent champions such as FC Midtjylland and FC Nordsjælland only having been in the top flight for 22 and 17 seasons respectively, they have still spent more time in the Danish Superliga or top flight in general than Helfolge Boldklub. Champions back in 2000, merely a year after FC Midtjylland themselves had been founded, Helfolge spent most of their 16 campaigns amongst Denmark's elite, slumming it out near the relegation places. But in that 2000 season, they took advantage of some poor form from those around them to emerge victorious by 2 points ahead of Brøndby, although they were only 13 points ahead of 9th place Odense, which, in a 12-team league, is quite impressive. In 2007, they were on the verge of merging with Køge Boldklub, but they missed the deadline to submit the necessary paperwork, so the Danish FA blocked the move, although 2 years later it was ratified, and they now compete under the name HB Køge in Denmark's second tier. Turkey, Istanbul Başakşehir. The unwanted upstarts of Turkish football, Istanbul Başakşehir are hated across Turkey as a result of their close ties to President Erdogan, who scored a hat-trick at the first game of Başakşehir's new stadium back in 2014 and saw the number that he wore in that game retired by the club in his honour. However, they had been challenging for the league every season since promotion in 2014, and they finally got their hands on the trophy last season after finishing 4 points ahead of the team who would have been the correct answer before last season in the form of Trabzonspor. In this current season though, which is their 13th overall in the Super League, their fortunes have dipped spectacularly as they are currently in the relegation places after 24 games played, which will be no doubt of great satisfaction to Turkey's footballing elite. Ukraine, Tavria Simferopol. Purely by virtue of the fact that every single Ukrainian Premier League title, apart from the very first one, has been won by either Dynamo Kiev or Shakhtar Donetsk, I don't really have much to work with, but since the team that won that 1992 championship no longer exists, and Dynamo and Shakhtar very much do, it's pretty obvious as to who takes this one. Tavria Simferopol won their group to qualify for the final against Dynamo Kiev, whom they beat 1-0 in Lviv, but after that stunning success, they could only finish as high as 5th over their next 22 seasons in the Ukrainian Premier League. After the Russian annexation of the Crimea, where Tavria were based, they ceased to exist as a Ukrainian club, joining the Russian Football Union instead, although a new form of Tavria now exists in the southern region of Kherson in Berislav. Scotland, Dumbarton. Much like Enosis Neon Trust, Dumbarton were the first ever winners of the Scottish Football League back in 1891, albeit that title would be shared with Rangers after they finished level on points and drew their subsequent playoff, but they would emerge triumphant again the following season, meaning that they are the only team in this video to have won their respective league more than once. However, in 1896, just 4 years after their last Scottish League title, they were relegated, and since 1922, they've only competed in the Scottish Premier League once, with it coming in 1985-86, bringing their total to just 16 seasons in Scotland's top flight. Austria, Vienna AF. Vienna AF were founded in 1910, but within a few months of their foundation, they had already been granted access to take part in Austria's first ever season of professional football in 1911. They didn't hang around either, finishing no lower than 4th in each of the first 8 seasons of top flight football within the country, reaching their zenith of 1st place in 1914. However, in 1919, things went a little bit awry, as they mostly battled to avoid relegation over the coming few seasons, a fate which they succumbed to in 1924 after winning just one game all season and finishing in last. They never made it back to the top flights after that and were dissolved in 2004, meaning that their 13 seasons stay in the Austrian First Division is the fewest by any champion. Belgium, Racing White Daring Molenbeek. There is a bit of confusion surrounding Belgium's most efficient side, as the two teams who were contention for this, namely Racing de Bruxelles and Royal White Star, actually merged in 1963 to create the brilliantly named Royal Racing White Molenbeek, adding Daring to their name following another merger with Daring de Bruxelles in 1973. If I am judging it on that club's record solely after that 1963 merger, which I am, then Racing White Daring Molenbeek are my choice, considering they only spent a grand total of 19 seasons between 1965 and 1984 in the Belgian Pro League, winning the league once in 1985 before being relegated in 1984 and dissolved completely in 2002, remarkably making them the fourth extinct team to feature in this video, and there is still more yet to come. The Netherlands, AFC DWS. Amsterdamse Football Club door Wilskracht Sterk. I'm really sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but I did try, I promise. Better known simply, mercifully for my sake, as AFC DWS, only entered the professional game in 1954, but after just 10 seasons as a professional club, they had lifted the Eredivisie title. Their feat was made all the more extraordinary by the fact that they had won promotion to the Eredivisie the season prior, making them the only team to achieve this feat in Dutch football history, and they are the last team to win the league who don't play predominantly in a red and white kit, as theirs was blue. However, the tide would turn spectacularly, and after a steady decline over the next 8 years, they merged with two other clubs to form FC Amsterdam, and the original DWS would drop back into the amateur game, meaning that they haven't added to their 13 seasons of Eredivisie football since 1972. Russia, Spartak Vladikavkaz. Spartak Vladikavkaz were actually called Spartak Alanya Vladikavkaz during their title-winning season of 1995, but after 14 consecutive seasons in the Russian Premier League, they were relegated in 2005 and saw their license revoked the following year, sending them down to the third tier. They achieved the rather bizarre distinction of being the first Russian National League side, namely their second tier, to compete in the Europa League qualifying rounds after reaching the final of the Russian Cup back in 2011, sandwiching two separate one-season stints in the Russian Premier League. That brought their total up to 16, although they would withdraw from the Russian National League in 2014, and after 6 seasons spent in the third tier, they finished in last place in their group last season, finally taking the decision to dissolve altogether. Portugal, Boa Vista. By far and away the highest number in this entire video, Boa Vista fall victim to the fact that Belenenses, Porto, Sporting Lisbon and Benfica, the only other 4 teams to have won the Premier League in its entire history, are the 4 teams who have spent the most seasons in Portugal's top flight. Therefore, even though their number stands at 57 seasons spent in the Premier Liga, Boa Vista's number is still 20 behind Belenenses, meaning that they are the team to have spent the fewest seasons amongst Portugal's elite, yet still win it at least once. Their title came in 2001 as they beat out their city rivals Porto by just 2 points, but unless an upstart comes along and wins the league over the coming years, which I don't think is likely to happen, they are likely to keep that record for at least the next couple of decades. France, Olympique Lillois. As those of you who've seen my video looking at the first teams to compete in France's Ligue 1 will know, Olympique Lillois were the winners of that 1932-33 season, which saw a National League played in France for the first time. However, they would only spend a total of 6 more seasons in Division 1, as it was known at the time, and following their relegation in 1939, they would never return, merging with SC Thieves in 1944 to create Lille OSC, who have won Ligue 1 3 times to date and currently sit in first place in the 2020-21 season as of the time of this recording. Germany, 1860 München. By weird coincidence, 3 of the final 4 teams in this video compete in their respective countries' third tier at the moment, with the first of those teams being 1860 München, with their football department coming into being in 1899. Like the last video, I'm only looking at the Bundesliga era of German football, and with that in mind, 1860 München just edged out Eintracht Braunschweig by 1 season to take this particular title. They would win the much more coveted Bundesliga crown in 1966, which was the very first season in which their cross-city rivals Bayern München would take part in the Bundesliga. But whilst they have gone on to achieve unparalleled success in the German and indeed European game in the years that have followed, 1860 have never got their hands on the Bundesliga trophy since, with their last top-flight campaign of their 20 thus far coming some 17 years ago. Italy, Hellas Verona. If I were to include all champions of Italy, the answer would be Novese, since they won it in 1922, but after 1929, when Serie A was established, they have never spent a season in the country's top flight. But I'm not doing that, so instead, the title of the most efficient team in Italy goes to Hellas Verona. Their sole league title came in 1985, a season which was the first to see referees selected for certain games by a random draw as opposed to a referee commission, and they benefited from this to end up winning the league, as Italy's other major teams floundered. However, they only won half of their 30 games that season, drawing 13 and losing the other 2, and in their 29 other seasons competing in Serie A, which includes this current campaign, they haven't won another one. England, Ipswich Town. Ipswich's only league title in their history actually came in their debut First Division campaign in 1961-62 under the guidance of the legendary Sir Alf Ramsey, the season after they had won promotion from the Second Division. When he left for the England job in 1963, the tide turned very quickly, and on Boxing Day of that very year, the club would be annihilated 10-1 by Fulham on their way to relegation and 121 goals conceded, which is one of the worst ever tallies, if not the worst ever tally, recorded in English top flight football history. In all, they've spent just 26 seasons in either the First Division or the Premier League, and they currently find themselves in 11th place in League One under the guidance of Paul Lambert. Spain, Deportivo La Coruña. Much like with a few clubs in this video, Deportivo's sole league title came partly as a result of the country's major hitters, in their case Barcelona, Valencia and Real Madrid, all having abysmal seasons by their standards, meaning that the Galician outfit were able to swoop in and claim the title with just 69 points to their name. However, within 11 years they would be relegated, and after yo-yoing between the first and second tiers for most of the last decade, they are now stuck in the Segunda División B after being relegated from the Segunda División last season, meaning that their total of 46 seasons in La Liga is likely to remain the same for a little while to come. That just about wraps up today's video on the most efficient team in each of Europe's top 15 leagues. Again, if you missed the video on the unluckiest team in each of Europe's top 15 leagues, a link to that video is in the description down below. And if you enjoyed this particular one, hit the like, hit the subscribe and ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload a video straight away. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, see you then.